Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the vice chair of the state Republican Party as well as the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. Back with us in the studio is our good friend, esteemed colleague, great lawyer, great essayist, political commentator, Eric Levine. Joining us later will be one of the more interesting people. We've had a lot of interesting people on the show in the years we were doing this. His name is Izzy Kartan. He's a real estate investor and developer. He serves in the Israel Defense Forces, and he is the leader of the, or one of the major leaders of the counter demonstrations, the pro-Israel faction, the anti-terrorist, anti-Hamas faction, who are fighting back on the college campuses. So we'll have him later on in the show, so stay tuned for that, please. All right, gentlemen, what I want to bring up and I want to start with is the craziness that's going on the college campuses. Let me start off and lay it out this way. The people who were attacked were the people of Israel and people who were visitors to Israel, including Americans and people from all over the world. Some 1,200 were slaughtered, raped, tortured. Kids were literally put in ovens and blown up. Pregnant women were cut up in pieces. There were gang rapes. And lo and behold, what do you think happens? The victim in this are the nice people of Hamas who perpetrated this atrocity against humanity. And the Israelis are the bad guys. It makes your eyes bleed and it makes your head explode. Let's say it again. The victimizers are the Israelis who are fighting back in an existential fight for survival, and the victims are the nice people of Hamas, as well as the people in Gaza who supported them overwhelmingly in the election, as well as 70 or 80% of them supported them in their attack on October 7th and cheered it on. So that's what you have, a war of terrorists against the legitimate state and allied United States, and you have these foolish, stupid, naive students who are protesting in favor of Hamas and terrorism. And when they do this, they are breaking the law. They're interfering with other people's rights to have an education. They're breaking the law by blockading tunnels and bridges and streets. They've created an atmosphere on our college campuses of terror where Jewish students are not allowed to go to classes and free from fear. This is a violation of Civil Rights Act, Section 6, Article 6. So let's be very, very clear who the victims are and who the aggressors are. And for those people, those commentators say, well, this is not anti-Semitism. This is just being against Israel or Israeli policies. This is inseparable, in my humble opinion. I want to point out to you, before I turn it over to Eric and to Jesse for comments, the Wall Street Journal, in a terrific editorial, has talked about America's new mob rule. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about tyranny by mob on these college campuses. They're ignorant. They have no moral center. They have no sense of decency. They have no sense of humanity. They're making demands. They're occupying buildings. At Columbia, they're finally brought out when Columbia finally did the right thing. And I say finally, emphasis on finally. And no kudos to Columbia for finally doing the right thing.
Well, remains to be seen.
And it remains to be seen because it's still open.
Will they be expelled?
Right. And the fact of the matter is, and I tell you as a lawyer, a former assistant attorney general, and a Supreme Court justice, these kids are guilty of burglary. And burglary is a felony. They should be held in on bail. They shouldn't be getting desk appearance tickets. They should be expelled, as Eric just pointed out, and they should be prosecuted for this burglary. And it's just lucky that people weren't hurt or killed in this, which is why it's a failure of the leadership of Columbia. Another editorial in the Wall Street Journal, Jesse and Eric, was A Tale of Three Universities. And it talks about Columbia, where they negotiated and they got jerked around. They had deadlines which they allowed to pass. And finally, they acted. The strong answer is you don't allow it to go that far. As soon as they start putting up tents and occupying spaces and taking over buildings, you get them the hell out. You have the police come in and you get them out. Next, that was Columbia. Next, you have Northwestern, who's totally succumbed, negotiated with these terrorists, these punk kids. And what do? They're now going to have divestiture from investment with Israel. So they're using.
Well, they're going to look into it.
Please. What they're doing is it's part of the divestiture movement to try to marginalize and isolate Israel. How dare they get involved in the foreign policy of the United States, and how dare the university go along with that and succumb to that blackmail by these punk kids. Then the third tale is the University of Florida, which said, look, we have rules. You follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, you will be suspended. If you cause bigger problems, you will be expelled. You're not children. We're not your caretakers. You have an obligation to respect the voices and the rights of other people on campus. The people who should be expelled are the kids. The people who should be disciplined and fired and terminated are these administrators and these professors who are part of that. So that's a tale of three universities. And by the way, we told a tale of four universities because Brown has also succumbed to this terrorism and are going along with doing hirings of pro-Palestinian professors. And Biden, by the way, has now announced under serious and substantial consideration about bringing in to the United States of America some of these folks from Gaza. So let me get this straight. How are you going to tell which one are the terrorists, which ones are the supporters of Hamas, which ones are a threat to America? And you're bringing in and you're extending the powers and the force of the fifth column, people who have no allegiance to this country and are trying to destroy us, both from within and from without. Eric.
Well, I think you did a pretty good job of giving an overview, but I think we need to know a little bit more about Hamas. Who exactly is Hamas? Who are these heroes of the progressive moronic left? Hamas is the direct ideological descendant of the Muslim Brotherhood, just like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. There's no difference between the three. Who is the Muslim Brotherhood? The Muslim Brotherhood was a political party organization that was formed in Egypt in the 1920s, whose ideology was that of National Socialism, the Nazis. And the Hamas is a direct descendant of the Muslim Brotherhood. They are not metaphorical Nazis. They are actual Nazis. And if you were to go to Saudi Arabia today, or to the UAE, or to Bahrain, or to Morocco, and you were to ask the Arab states, who is the biggest threat to your regime, Iran would be number 2. Number 1 would be the Muslim Brotherhood. Understand that Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the UAE, Oman, Kuwait, and the other Arab Gulf countries, with the exception of Yemen, which has been handed by the Biden administration to Iran, are all rooting for Israel to eviscerate Hamas. They are all rooting for Israel to go into Rafah and finish the job. That's who Hamas is, and that's who these protesters are standing up to defend. Now, who are these protesters? It should be understood these are not organic movements. These aren't people that are students who just simultaneously, all at once, got up and said, oh, you know what? The Israelis are apartheid, neo-colonial, occupying power, and we need to stand up against them. No. You have a great number of outside agitators that have co-opted and persuaded many of these college students to stand with them. But these, if you look at their signs and you look at the symbolism and you listen to their words, they're all identical. These are all organized, and these are paid for. And who pays for it? You have morons and anti-Americans like George Soros, who happens to be Jewish, and it is inexplicable as to why he would do this. And then you have, of course, a lot of disinformation from Iran. A lot of these students get their history and their politics from TikTok, and a lot of that comes directly misinformation from Iran. So that's who these people are. And then when they talk about, oh, we're pro-Palestinian. No, they are not pro-Palestinian. They are not pro-Palestinian. If you are pro-Palestinian, you are against Hamas, because there is no future for the Palestinians until Hamas is destroyed. Now, Richard, you talked about the election and the Palestinians elected Hamas. Let's remember, that election was in 2006. There's not been an election since 2006. Why has there not been an election since 2006? Because Mahmoud Abbas, who's the president of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, it's up to him to call elections. In 2006, Hamas won in Gaza, and in 2006, the Palestinian Authority won in the West Bank. And what did Hamas do? They took the Palestinian Authority, and they took the members of the Palestinian Authority, the political opposition, and literally carried them to the tops of roofs of apartment buildings and threw them off and killed them. That's who Hamas is. The Israelis, when they left in 2005, there's not been a Jew, an Israeli in Gaza since 2005, because Prime Minister Ariel Sharon closed every settlement and forced every Israeli to leave. It has been Judenrein since 2005. He left farms, he left factories, he left schools, he left hospitals, they left 5-star hotels and an entire infrastructure. And they could have built themselves a Singapore. What did they choose to do? Aside from murdering their political opponents, they turned it into a terrorist hellhole. These are the people that these college students and their fellow agitators are standing up to defend. Coming back to the elections, Mahmoud Abbas is now in the 18th year of his 4-year term. And why won't he call a new election? Because if he calls a new election, Hamas will win. And that's why he doesn't want to be displaced as the head of Palestinian Authority. They can't take polls in Gaza right now because it's a little difficult to get around in the streets. But they have polled in the West Bank, amongst the Palestinians in the West Bank. And 70% believe that the October 7th attack is justified. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. Let's come back to the protesters. They are not protesting in support of the Palestinians. Their protests are simple. They want the Jews gone. They want Israel destroyed, and they want the Jews eviscerated. They want them eliminated. They want to make their college campuses Judenrein,
which means Jew-free.
Jew-free. It was the Nazi term for what they had to do in Germany in order to save the German Republic. They had to make it Judenrein. They had to get rid of the Jews. And that's exactly what these people want. This is not a First Amendment issue. It's very important for the listeners to understand that. Even the Supreme Court has said it is perfectly reasonable for governments, private parties, to impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And for the colleges and the universities to say, you can protest and you have every right to speak, but you must do it in this way, at these times, in these places. You do not have a right to take over a campus. You do not have a right to shut down the campus. You do not have a right to intimidate your fellow students. You do not have a right to deprive them of their education. You do not have the right to place them in fear. That is not protected speech. Those are crimes. Those are assaults. Those are intimidation. And they should be prosecuted. And when Columbia finally sent in the police to empty Hamilton Hall and empty these people out, lo and behold, what did we find? An overrepresentation of people from off campus. These are just outside agitators. And it remains to be seen whether or not Columbia is going to have the courage to expel these people. They need to be expelled. And for those who were there illegally and trespassing, they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Jesse, I want to get your thoughts. We have only a couple of minutes in this segment. We'll begin with you and our guest after. But what are your thoughts right now?
You and Eric have given a very solemn and tragic overview of what's transpired over the last 10 days on these college campuses, if not longer. I think that just to touch upon a few of this. Number one, I'm very surprised that the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, waited until after the brave men and women of the New York Police Department went in and took back Hamilton Hall at Columbia University before he uttered a word.
No, he only issued a press release. The coward did not have the guts to show up at the campus, unlike Speaker Mike Johnson, who went there.
And I was just getting to that. Speaker Mike Johnson walked into the Lion's Den there, stood there on the grounds, and told every student, those of the Jewish faith, those who wanted to just get their classes done, people who paid to get there and get their education, that he stood with them. He stood against those protesters, which we now know, as time comes out, in the University of Texas, Austin, we know that 47 of the 49 arrests that were made on those people, on on-campus protesters, were from off-campus. We also know, here back home in Columbia University, that a professional protester, Lisa, I hope I get this right, Fithian, was arrested as she is a professional antagonizer, a professional protester. Doesn't matter what the cause is, she's a disruptor. She gets paid to do this. And it'll be interesting to see how many of those protesters that were arrested, almost 282 as at last count, are on campus or off campus, and where the funding came from. Earlier this week, the Suffolk County Republican Committee called upon the U.S. Attorney General and the governor to immediately begin investigations into the funding and the source of these protests. Because as we've all discussed here, and I think you don't need to be an expert lawyer, an expert judge, or a political leader to watch on TV that this is nothing more than an orchestrated attack within our homeland. It's being financed. As Eric, you pointed out, the signs are the same. Listen, when the Republican campaign's going forward, our signs are very similar, the messaging is very similar, and we've been seeing the same anti-Semitic, deaf to America, deaf to Jews type of messaging and signage in all these campuses. You pointed out to the George Soros. There have been other experts that have also pointed out that it could be the Rockefeller Foundation that's funding this, or even foreign interests. I'll close. I know we're coming up with a hard break in that Alan Dershowitz, I saw him in reporting on Fox News earlier this week, and he said that he is getting together a number of lawyers to sue those individuals that disrupted those protesters because he has no confidence that the college is going to expel them or that the New York State prosecutors are going to prosecute these protesters who are really just spewing hate and targeting and discriminating against people, that they're going to do anything of any substantial consequence. So he wants to depose them, take them to court, depose them, so that they, you use the power of money. And maybe on the next segment, we need to talk about the power of money, because I credit gentlemen like Robert Kraft, a major benefactor of Columbia University, who also owns the New England Patriots, for withholding monies. And we've seen that before. That works in these universities. You withhold donations to the foundations, and then all of a sudden you get the Board of Trustees' attention and you get the president to resign.
Well, also, by the way, these not-for-profit organizations that fund these terrorist demonstrations, they should lose their tax benefits. How's that?
Absolutely.
And also, how about suing the university? You have well-endowed universities like Harvard and Columbia in billions of dollars. Sue them for the cost of bringing in the cops, and sue them in class actions, as Eric has been working on at Columbia. Sue them because these kids are being denied an education just because they happen to be Jewish. So these are big deals. There are leverages that we can use, as you correctly point out, Jesse, using the power of money to fight back. You cannot allow this to stand. We have to take a hard break at this point. We'll be back in a few moments with Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. We'll be joined by Izzy Cartan, was a student at Columbia, graduate of Columbia, served in the IDF. And when we get his observations of what he saw at Columbia and why he got involved. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be right back.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Having trouble hearing in work meetings? Eventually you zone out. You've missed too much to catch up now. Get your confidence back with Nuance Audio.
Don't worry, I just spoke with the sales office, and they assured me the order has already been processed.
The new invisible hearing solution that's built into your glasses. Nuance Audio glasses help you hear better and reduce background noise, so you can tune into your meetings all day long. Learn more at nuanceaudio.com.
Smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Scentiva. Available in Clorox Scentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, Eric Levine, noted lawyer, commentator, and essayist. We are joined, I'm privileged and honored to have a young hero of mine, Izzy Carton. He's a real estate investor. He's a developer. He served in the Israel Defense Force, known as the IDF. He is a graduate of Columbia. He's one of the great organizers in the country of counter demonstrations and a countervailing voice against the pro-terrorist students who are destroying America and the college campuses. He comes by this honestly. His grandparents were fighters in the resistance and with the partisans during World War II in Poland, in the forest in Poland against the German Nazis. So Izzy, my young hero, welcome to Let the Record Show. Thank you very much for being on. I want to turn you over to Chairman Garcia to begin the conversation. Jesse.
Izzy, thank you, Your Honor. Izzy, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your service and your commitment to peace and prosperity of all people, including those of the Jewish faith. I wanted to find out, you were right there in the middle of this storm, in the middle of this protest. Can you give us and our listeners, a blow-by-blow of what you observed from these protesters, from agitators, professional agitators, disruptors, and how it was to be in the middle of that chaos of melee?
That's exactly right. I wanted to start by first saying thank you to both of you for having me. Your Honor, also, Judge, it's a pleasure, and I'm honored to be here as well. My history, as you guys were saying, I come from a family of fighters. My grandfather was a partisan in the Holocaust. He did not want to go like sheep to the slaughter. He instead decided to fight back and actually fight back against the Nazis and won and saved hundreds of Jews in the Holocaust. From my mother's side as well, notable soldiers as well in the IDF. And I don't think that we're fighting any different animal or beast here. I think that the same fight that we were fighting in Nazi Germany, and you can date it back even if you want to go every single generation in Jewish history, there is people that come in and try to destroy us. But now we're dealing with a little bit of a different animal, and the anti-Semitism is showing a different face in the America of today. And it's the same people that have actually, what I've observed firsthand from attending these counter protests, organizing them, organizing groups of over 1,000 of people, group chats and communities that respond to these kind of people. There are many of the same individuals that were involved in New York City with the Antifa, with the Black Lives Matter, with other rallies, and now they've taken control of the college minds and said, this is your next enemy, the Jewish people or the Israeli state. What I've been able to see from there is that most of the people won't even engage with you. The tremendous amount of anti-Semitism that spews from these people's mouths. When you try to engage with them and speak to them about it, they don't even care. They don't know where the river and where the sea is. They have no idea what kind of anti-Semitic rhetoric they're continuing to spew. And when you start to explain to them that the terrorist is Hamas, that these are the people that are oppressing them, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear any knowledge. They don't want to hear any of it. And so what we're doing is we're trying to go out there as much as we can, and if we can't engage with them, at least show face to the public that these are not the only people on the streets. And the difference is we come from a place of love. We come from a place from we're patriots to America and to Israel. We want to see a democracy, a Western democracy in the Middle East and the United States thrive, and they don't want to see that. They're people who have, from a young age, continue to be agitators. Don't like the institutions that create our democracy, and want to see the fall of it. And they want to start by Israel, and they want to continue with America. These people, they're burning Israeli and American flags in the same notion, and some of the disgusting, vile chants that come out of them that they're saying they're trying to just for peace or for rights. It's complete BS. You go there and you see people chanting Intifada, Intifada. My uncle was kidnapped and murdered in the second Intifada. I know what the word Intifada means. They try and recreate it and to mean something else and justify the fact that they're able to say that. They scream NYPD, KKK, IDF, you're all the same. That's what one of their chants are. They hate all of our institutions and they see us as some kind of person against them when all we're trying to do is stand for our democracy, stand for our values, and continue to live as a free people in our own country.
Yeah, I couldn't, Izzy, thank you for joining us. I couldn't agree more. I wonder if we could talk a little bit more about the Antifa piece. I mean, the New York City Police Department was talking about who they had arrested and brought down to process after they cleared out Hamilton Hall at Columbia. And there was strong implications from the NYPD that the Antifa was really had a very major role in what was going on there. Do you have any information about that?
Oh, I'm sure about it. I mean, you should see some of the flags that people were holding were, first of all, they were wearing all kinds of insignia, even Hamas insignia. They were waving the PFLP flags. Also, they're visibly, people that are on the extreme left wing. You see people that are not, conforming to any societal norms that we do as well. I mean, some of the women that are there, you get your blue-haired people that are, completely on the extreme left, and they have no skin in the game. If I'm telling you, Judge, I'm telling you, and my family has been there for decades. My brothers and my uncles spilled blood in the land. Okay, our people before that for thousands of generations have been there. It would be one thing if you had people that had ties to the country that were in the middle of these protests. I wouldn't call them legitimate either, but it would be one thing. To have the majority, and I can see this firsthand, 80-90% from my eyewitness accounts, they're not Muslim, they're not Arab. You have 5 to 10% of them that can even consider themselves Arab from this region. I wouldn't say the word Palestinian because there's never been a country of Palestine in this area, an independent sovereign country of Palestine in the area. 5 to 10%.
Or any area. There's never been
any area.
There's never been a state of Palestine. Period. It's an historical fact.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's interesting to me. So when they're waving this flag and they're saying, we're not Hamas supporters, we just are there for freedom and for rights. What do you mean? You're waving a flag and you're chanting for resistance when all that's existed in that region in terms of resistance is not nonviolent resistance. It's resistance that includes raping women, beheading babies. The egregious acts that these people are in solidarity with are people that put babies in ovens. That's how we found our victims on October 7th.
Yeah, there's no questioning this. There's no questioning the savagery of these people. But I want to ask you a question that I get asked repeatedly when I'm interviewed by either television or newspaper reporters. They say, how could you accuse these people of being anti-Semitic? Because Jews participate in this. You have a lot of Jewish protesters on the side of the rabble-rousers. So how do you respond to that? So the point I make is, well, Karl Marx and Leon Trotsky were also Jews, and they've said some of the most vile things about Jews. And that the fact that a Jew says something stupid or ignorant about Israel or Jewish people doesn't make it any less stupid or ignorant. So I'm just curious. I mean, have you been confronted with that question? And if so, how do you respond to that?
Actually, it's a very good question. I'm happy you brought it up. I do get confronted with it a lot. What I heard before I would go there, these people are paid. They're not really Jewish. They're fake Jews. You could make the argument. A lot of people say that as well. You see these women wearing talis and yarmulke. Anyone who knows that, the modern Orthodox or any type of Judaism that's existed for more than 40 years, it doesn't include that as well. So where are these people really calling themselves Jewish from? Where is it originating from? Okay, the first thing. The second thing is they're less than also like 1 or 2% of the Jewish. I would say less than point. I mean, I'm not going to give a statistic. I don't know, but extremely minority within the Jewish people that are in these areas. I did actually witness people that were claiming that they were Jewish there. They claimed they even had a Passover Seder in the encampments. And
I wonder what the angel of death did there. I'm just curious.
Right, exactly. And they're not obviously not reading the Passover story when our people were exiled the first time, which is what they're trying to do now. They're trying to get a state and then to use that, to take over and kill all the Jews, which are what the charter of Hamas is. But leave that aside for a second. These people, calling themselves Jewish, I would really, if you ask me my opinion, I would tie it back to our first question about, how much these people are related to Antifa and how much these people are so influenced by the extreme left and their wokeism that they've completely lost their minds, that they've become self-hating, that they've been deluded to the point where they feel like it'd be okay to call for their own destruction because they grew up with these people, because all of their friends are doing it, because, TikTok and whatever else is influencing these minds, which is why I'm so happy that the ban got passed. Hopefully we'll see that implemented soon. Taking over these kids' minds to the point that they even forget where they're from, and all their friends are doing it, and all their friends are on the radical left, and so they feel it's okay.
Yeah, I think it also, you also can, people also betray themselves. People can be self-loathsome. People commit suicide. They hate themselves. There's a lot of self-loathing, obviously, with these people. There's no question that Jews are involved in this. George Soros is a perfect example. But countries like the United States or any country in the world always have they have laws against being a traitor. So these are just people who are traitors to their people. Jesse,
your turn.
Well, I just wanted to add to this. When you said, we were talking a little bit about the Antifa section. When you saw that, did you get any sense that the actual, what type of the population was actual students and what were being, basically filtered in from professional disruptors? Did you get a chance to speak or even try and, speak to any of these protesters to find out what they really were protesting, whether they be, especially the students? I'm really focused on the students because I think we're going to find out if this is an honest investigation that a lot of these professional disruptors and protesters were the ones that truly were instigating this act.
Right. There is no question about it that someone who is there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 to 5, is called a professional, right? If I do real estate Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, I'm a professional. No way this person can pay for his own salary, et cetera, and expenses if he's not, a professional getting paid for it, or just simply has no life and has nothing better to do and feels like the whole world is against him. So why not go and sit out there all day? And unfortunately, these are the people that have been doing it again and again, recycled with a different cause, and they've dragged our students into it, and it's horrible.
Well, I have to tell you, Izzy, as I sit here and watch this, I'm as disturbed and as pessimistic as I've ever been in my entire life about the future of this country. What Jesse and Eric and I have talked about over the years that we're doing the show is the division in America. And what I worry about is, and Eric made this point earlier, and Jesse's been made this point too, how do we get back to common shared values? How do we restore a commitment to this country? My fear is that there's this axis of evil working against the United States of America. On the outside, you have Iran, and you have China, you have Russia, you have Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela. And on the inside, you have what I describe in a term of art for those people who understand it, and Jesse's explained it previously on the show. They're fifth columnists. They're people who have infiltrated this country and have no commitment to the values, the institutions of this country. They're disloyal, and they're just looking for the opportunity to harm us, which is related, gentlemen, I submit to you, to the foolishness, the stupidity. I'd like to give them credit and say it's naivete, but I think it's more evil than naivete.
It's malevolence.
The malevolence of the Biden administration by having open borders. We don't know who these people are. They're coming in, and Biden has just announced, the fool that he is, that he's going to bring in people from Gaza into the United States. And how are they going to screen these people and make a determination about who they are and whether actually...
How do you think we got to this problem in the first place?
Ah, well said. Well, I've just got the signal that we have to take a break. Izzy Carton, you are a hero. God bless you. Fight the fight. You come from a great tradition of people who fought for justice and human dignity. I want to thank you for being on Let the Record Show. You're an inspiration to all of us. It takes a lot of courage to do what you do in organizing and being there and fighting back when you have overwhelming numbers against you, and you to be commended. Keep up the fight.
I appreciate the time and the opportunity, guys, and I really want to thank you guys all for doing what you're doing on a consistent basis and to such a broad audience. Hopefully some way, that your work can try and help cure this country a little bit.
Thanks again. We'll be taking a break. This is Let the Record.
Thank you, Izzy.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll be taking a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, Eric Levine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist. I'm Richard Weinberg, also known as Judge Richard Weinberg. Elliot Spitzer, the former governor, he was my intern when I was assistant attorney general for the state.
That explains a lot.
That's right. So Elliot, one time after he won the nomination for governor, and we were together at a wedding out in Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Elliot said, "Well, what do I call you? Your Supreme Court? Should I call you Mr. Justice?" And I said, "No, I'll call you Excellency when you become governor, but you can call me exactly what my wife and daughters call me. You don't have to call me Mr. Justice. Plain Judge will do just fine." So that's the rule we have in the Weinberg household. This is Let the Record Show. We'll be back in a moment for a final segment of this week's show. Please stay tuned.
This is Let the Record Show.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipped.com/360. Terms apply.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show. We just had a very interesting segment with Izzy Carton, who is a leader of the counter demonstrators. He's pro-Israel. He's a fighter with integrity and courage. He actually organizes and confronts these terrorists, these young punk kids who are terrorists and supporting terrorists on the college campuses. He's a graduate of Columbia. He served in the Israeli Defense Forces. Very impressive kid. And really is, I guess I shouldn't call him a kid. He's 23 years old. But to me, he's a kid since my daughters are a lot older than that. But I can't say how much on the air, so I won't. But the fact is, just a remarkable guy. I want to switch gears, Jesse and Eric. And I want to talk about this lawfare attack by the Democrats and their prosecutors against Donald Trump. To me, it's a real question of who really is interfering and is guilty of election interference. Let's talk immediately about the case brought by District Attorney Bragg in New York County against Trump. It's a case which I respectfully submit is a case that's never should have been brought. There is no crime here. At best, if you want to argue there's a crime, there's a misdemeanor, and that statute of limitations is run. The Justice Department found no problems. The Federal Elections Commission found no problems. The U.S. Attorney's Office found no problems. Bragg's predecessor, Cy Vance, found no problems. Bragg himself found no problems. And then he resurrected this case because he was the subject of an attack in a book that was written by one of the prosecutors on the inside who didn't like the fact that he didn't bring charges against Trump. And so Bragg jumped back and indicted 34 counts. It's all the same thing. The fact of the matter is it all has to do with paying hush money for a non-disclosure agreement. There's nothing illegal about that. These are internal bookkeeping. And what do? They brought in a number 3 person from the United States Department of Justice, and they brought him in as a chief prosecutor and a chief strategist of this case against Donald Trump. This is a case never should have been brought. There is no crime here. The judge, Juan Merchan, is presiding. His daughter is conflicted because she makes money out of this by being a fundraiser and an operative for the Democratic Party. Merchan himself has made contributions to the Democratic Party. He should have recused himself on his own motion. He didn't have to wait. He never should have denied it. At the very least, he should have changed the venues, taking out of New York County, where 85% of the people hate Donald Trump, regardless of what the merits of this case are. He's made rulings on the evidence, Jesse and Eric, that I will tell you as a former Justice of the Supreme Court who's tried my share of cases. I will tell you he's letting evidence in that's totally unrelated to the charges.
You're going to have a Harvey Weinstein situation.
That's exactly right. He keeps talking about conspiracies, but it was never indicted as a conspiracy. He's letting proof in of a so-called conspiracy. The conspiracy doesn't exist. There were honest individual acts that had nothing to do with this. It all has to do with a violation of federal campaign finance law, which the prosecutor has the right to do. It's a violation of due process to charge him without telling what the crimes are. And he's denying Trump a real opportunity to take the stand on his own behalf because he's going to allow him to be cross-examined on irrelevant matters where the prejudicial value outweighs any kind of, as we call it, probative evidence. So for all those reasons, it drives me insane to see that this charade is going on. This is nothing but a kangaroo court brought by a left-wing prosecutor, supported by a left-wing judge, in a town, Manhattan, which is purely Trump haters. And how is the man supposed to get a fair trial? This is absolutely ridiculous. And the strategy, and I want Jesse's thoughts on this, seems to me, Jesse, that the strategy here is fundamentally to occupy Trump so he can't go out on the campaign trail. And the question is, how badly is that going to hurt Donald Trump in this election interference case? Jesse.
Your Honor, you said it best, and you laid it all out. This case never should have been brought, but it is. But honestly, to take this case, we have spoken and we have given example after example of how Democrats, whether they be in Albany or they be in Washington, when in power, they weaponize institutions of our government and our country and in our state. And this is nothing more than that. In 2020, I do believe that you had a cabal of blue state governors and a left-leaning media, big tech, converging on an issue of stopping Trump, whether on a number of different issues. I mean, we know we've gone through that, talking about the Hunter Biden laptop that was suppressed and was later found out to be accurate. This year, it appears that there is no COVID on the horizon, so they are manufacturing this type of multifaceted, multi-pronged assault to stop Trump. I think they don't, for a layman, that just demonstrates the fact that they are deeply fearful of Trump winning the White House and the movement behind him. That being said, we all know it's a travesty. This is the prostitution of lawful government and the judiciary, as well as the prosecution. But and I'm going to actually pose this and turn around to both of you. As I've been watching this trial and getting reports on the trial on all channels, on all viewpoints, and all media outlets, this actually, especially in the first 2 or 3 witnesses, this is actually helping Trump's case. And it seems like it's hurting the case being brought on by Alvin Bragg, that even a jury of Trump's peers that 85% voted against him in the last presidential election in Manhattan, may not have the ability to actually rule in a guilty verdict because the case is so flimsy. Because that, in this layman's view, the prosecution's top witnesses have basically been making the case that this is nothing more than the normal order of business, whether it be campaigns or in big business. So I pose those 2 questions to you, Eric, and Your Honor.
Eric.
Yeah, so I mean, from my experience as a trial lawyer, when people try and they sit in for part of the trial and then they leave and then they come back the next day and they have formed all these great opinions. Unless you're in the courtroom every day following the trial, it's really impossible, I believe, to really give an informed opinion as to how the trial is going. Because otherwise you're just seeing bits and pieces of it. And also frequently when someone is testifying, they're testifying about a little nugget that is going to be tied into a bigger nugget, a bigger part of the case later on. So you're listening to it and you may not understand the context at the time. So I can't really opine in any meaningful way as to how the trial is going because I'm not following it day to day and listening to all the witnesses. But I will make the observation to both a point that both of you were alluding to. The case obviously never should have been brought. The case was brought for one reason. Alvin Bragg, I think, wants to run for mayor, and he wanted to improve his bona fides amongst the progressives so that he can win a primary, because all you have to do is win a Democratic primary and you win the general election. I think that's what this is about. But the fundamental issue in the case, or one of the points they're trying to make, is that Donald Trump somehow got some benefit. He's a violation of election law because he was trying to influence the election. And one of the examples they're giving is this guy Pecker, the publisher of the National Enquirer, and they're saying, well, because they had catch and kill, they didn't release these stories. Well, because so he can influence the election. Well, if that is an election violation, and I don't believe it is, but let's assume it is for the moment, then how do you square that with the Biden campaign getting 50 former intelligence officers to sign a document that falsely states that they believed that the Hunter Biden laptop was merely part of Russian disinformation? They knew it was false. They signed it anyway. The sole reason for it, and former CIA Director Morell said it directly. We did it because we wanted to stop Trump from winning the election. We wanted to help Joe Biden. How is that not the same kind of attempt to influence the outcome of an election and a violation of the election laws? He didn't declare it as an in-kind kind of contribution. See, that's the danger when you take these laws and you bastardize them and you stretch their application beyond any recognition. You bring in all kinds of potential other problems. I think those 50 former intelligence officers are a disgrace to America, and they should be ashamed of themselves for lying to the American people. But I don't know that they committed a criminal act. And similarly, by Trump engaging in this catch and kill, I'm not sure what the problem is here. And in fact, I don't even think that's pled as part of the violations, but it is being put forward, to Richard's point, as some of the evidence that has no relation to what the ultimate charge is here, and why this will probably be, hopefully and probably, will be overturned in the event that he's convicted.
Well, see, my problem, Jesse and Eric, is this. I believe that Merchan has committed reversible error in a number of instances. And I really think that an honest bench, an appellate bench, will overrule this case. I truly do. I truly do. But the political game is to keep Trump occupied, off the stage, going all across the country to campaign while he's locked in Manhattan. And that will be a cost. That's one cost. Second cost, there are people who otherwise would vote and support Donald Trump who say, well, if he gets convicted, I can no longer vote for him. I can no longer support him. And I think that group is being sucked in to a false conclusion. If you think the case, forgive the pun, is all trumped up, it's a nonsense case that never should have been brought, and you have a partisan, vindictive jury pool and a partisan, vindictive jury and a judge who's allowing stuff in and precluding stuff on the defense to defend themselves properly, if you're doing that, and you get overruled down the road and you're reversed, so what if you've lost people who are otherwise voting for you and you've kept the guy off the stage? That's my campaign political problem with this whole thing. And the other big issue I have is this is not just one case. This is a series of cases brought by another partisan prosecutor, Fannie, whatever her last name is, down in Georgia, a nonsense case.
Fannie Willis,
a nonsense case. You have two cases by Jack Smith, one in the District of Columbia and the other in Florida in federal court. Also bad nonsense cases.
Well, we disagree on that one.
Okay, fine. But what I'm saying to you is these are serious matters. How is a person supposed to defend himself properly when you have four cases and all the prosecutors are rushing to judgment and trying to rush to trial? It takes a lot of effort for those of us who've been in the law business, whether as lawyers or as prosecutors or judges, know the attention and detail you have to pay to work a case like this and defend yourself is enormous. Multiply that by 4 different cases. That in itself, to me, is a violation of his right to a fair trial and to be able to confront the witnesses against him. I think this is shockingly awful.
Well, the Supreme Court's starting to weigh in on this with the immunity.
Well, let's take that up, Eric. So, Supreme Court of the United States has an interesting case before it. Trump has said, because of the January 6th matter, that he was acting in the course and furtherance of his official duties because as the chief executive of the country, he has a right to comment and weigh in on election interference, the integrity of the electoral process. And I believe that's a correct legal interpretation. I don't believe that the arguments that were made by the Justice Department lawyers or the Solicitor General, whoever argued in the Supreme Court or whoever briefed this, that, well, does that mean that he could authorize somebody to commit an assassination on U.S. soil? But that's not what happened here. He was exercising his rights of free speech. He was exercising his right of as the chief executive. He was not charged with election interference. He was not charged with insurrection. Give me a break. This is a bad case. He's entitled to immunity to the extent you can carve out some sort of election interference theory. It's not satisfied by the facts, because if there's election interference, you have all kinds of bad acts, including the Hillary Clinton campaign of 2016 with the phony Steele dossier, where they trumped up nonsense. It was supposed to show that he was bought and paid for by the Russians. If anybody wants to compare the buying and selling of the presidency, Trump versus Biden, you would have to take a week to lay out all the bad instances of the Biden collusion with foreign actors enriching themselves. Is anybody talking about that? Why isn't somebody going after Biden on that? Why do they keep elevating all this nonsense against Trump? And I submit to you, that's an honest take, because I am the House Democrat and you guys are the Republicans, but I'm offended by this weaponization of the system. Jesse.
I think every American should be concerned about the weaponized of the system, because, we've always talked about this. Everyone says, oh, it's just about Trump. It's just about Trump. It's no big deal. It is a big deal, because looming in the background is a small business that's going to be attacked by this weaponized prosecution system and the Department of Justice and the judiciary, this corrupted, bent, manipulated judicial system and activist prosecutors. Same prosecutors that will let rapists and murderers and burglars go free. However, they'll lock up and tie up their political opponents. What's next is if your business doesn't comply with their thinking on climate, on regulations, on whatever it may be. And we've spoken about this. After the prosecution is getting you tied up, the Democrats have 87,000 new IRS agents they want to hire. They ain't going against GE or GM or Silicon Valley. They're coming for the mom and pop stores and the small businesses and the families who don't have the wherewithal or the resources to fight the government. So this is something that we should all, as Americans, as middle-class Americans, be concerned about, because they ain't just stopping with Donald Trump. It could be the next political opponent that you care about even more, or it could be you yourself and you're sitting in your business on Main Street or your home on your country road.
Agreed. I got to give Eric the last word, because otherwise he's jumping out of his seat as we sit here, Jesse.
Yeah, I think on the immunity issue, I think the Supreme Court's a little more nuanced than what you're saying here. I think what the Supreme Court said, if you do something in your official capacity, you're going to get immunity. If you do something in your unofficial capacity, then you may not get immunity. And the perfect example is January 6th. The question, my guess is going to be remanded for the lower court to make the determination as to whether or not, when Trump was down in D.C. on January 6th, whether or not he was acting in his capacity as president, or whether he was acting in his capacity as a private candidate. And if it's the latter, then they'll probably let the case go forward. But the final point I want to make is on why immunity is so critically important.
It's the presidency. It's not the one man.
Correct. And here's the perfect example. Barack Obama ordered the killing of Anwar al-Awlaki. Anwar al-Awlaki was an American citizen, member of al-Qaeda, holed up in Yemen. I can think of maybe two things that Barack Obama did that I agree with. This was one of them. He ordered the killing of Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen. If your president does not have immunity, are they now going to be able to come back and prosecute Barack Obama for murder, killing an American citizen, without any due process, without a trial? Of course not. It's insane. But this is why a president needs immunity.
Well said. Jesse, Eric, I want to thank you for a great show. Once again, I hope our audience has enjoyed this conversation. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to being with you again next week.
This is Let the Record Show.